Pridar or Pronoundar, every pony. This says BronyDan. It's not original, but hey, you try coming up with originality these days. Whenever people bring up the term British humour, usually the first thing to come to mind for many is Monty Python. While they weren't the first group to satirise and poke fun at the foibles of British society in the 1960s, in fact you could argue they were the last group of that period, they were certainly the most important. Monty Python took risks with their work. They pushed the boundaries of what could be done with television comedy with their surreal sketches and animation, and inspired many shows and comedians. They truly are the Beatles of comedy. While you would be hard-pressed to find a Python fan who says that they hate something like, say, the parrot sketch or the fish-slapping dance, there is, however, one piece of Monty Python that is quite divisive, and that is the meaning of life.
It's the meaning of life.
Released in 1983, The Meaning of Life was the last project that all 6 Python members worked on until Graham Chapman's death in 1989. While it was a success, many fans aren't as agreeable on it as they had been with their other movies. Some say it's their best piece of work, while others say it's a step down in terms of where they were going in terms of their movies. Now, personally, I think the movie's okay. I don't love it, I don't hate it, I think it's okay. But why exactly is The Meaning of Life so divisive as a piece of Python history? Well, in order to explain that, let's take a look at its history. The beginning of the 1980s was a good time for the Pythons. Their 1979 film Life of Brian, whilst being controversial, had been a massive success both critically and at the box office.
He's not the Messiah, he's a very naughty boy! Now go away!
And they also had a few successful nights at the Hollywood Bowl. Yet executives were insisting that another movie be made as soon as possible to capitalise on the success of Brian, which the Pythons reluctantly agreed to do, but due to a lack of focus on a running narrative for the film, they very nearly canned the project until Terry Jones decided to just throw the material they've already got together and try to create some link between them. The film as a whole would have been centred purely on the 7 ages of man. However, John Cleese was constantly getting frustrated with the constant meetings and just wanted the film over and done with, so it never reached that final stage of perfection that the other films had. And that's one of the problems that people have with this movie, the lack of a strong structure. What had made Holy Grail and Life of Brian work so well was because there was a detailed structure for the Pythons to work around, whether it was the Arthurian legend or the New Testament. Meaning of Life doesn't have that. As I said, the whole focus for the film was a last-minute inclusion, so some moments feel quite out of place and hurt the flow. I mean, for example, how stronger would the ending of the film have been if it had ended with the waiter? You could still have Mr. Creosote, then go through death, then come back to follow the waiter home where he tells you to fuck off.
Fuck off. Don't come following me.
Structurally, it works, and it's much more funnier. And because of this lack of structure, some of the sketches tend to overstay their welcome. I mean, I like the first part of the Zulu War sketch, but it just starts to drag on and stops being funny after a while when you get to the tiger section.
A tiger in Africa? A tiger in Africa?
There's also the fact that the Pythons themselves aren't that fussed on the film. I don't mean they hate the movie, but you do get the sense that since they're now in their 40s, some of them would rather be off doing solo stuff rather than being in a situation where they are constantly being outvoted on material. Terry Gilliam especially wasn't thrilled to do it. After making Jabberwocky and Time Bandits, he really didn't want to be going back to doing animation, so they had to allow him to do the Crimson Permanent Assurance short. Now, if it seems like I'm being a bit too negative, it's not terrible, because, as I said, as a movie it suffers a bit. However, as individual stuff, it's probably some of the best material that Monty Python has ever come up with. It's certainly much more violent and darker than what they've done in the past, but it's also more creative. I can't think of a perfect deconstruction of Roman Catholicism that every sperm is sacred, or how insignificant mankind really is with the Galaxy song. If you ever want to get your point across effectively, then you may as well do it in song.
Now, there are many reasons why I find that song scientifically inaccurate. It's pathetic, really.
Ah, come on, Brian Cox, the song's still awesome. And besides, the sketches are still well written and acted.
Now, did I or did I not do vaginal juices?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
In fact, many people believe that not having a structure works to this film's advantage because it feels more like the television series. And they're right. The show may have had great sketches, but it did have duds like any other show, and Meaning of Life is sort of the same. Maybe this look back has sort of changed my views on Meaning of Life a bit. It probably won't take the spot of my favourite Python film, but in terms of what could be seen as the best representation of Monty Python's style of comedy, then I suppose you can add this movie to the list. Check it out and avoid the salmon mousse.
Darling, you didn't use canned salmon, did you?
I'm most dreadfully embarrassed.
This is BronyDan saying, well, fuck off.
So remember when you're feeling very small and insecure, how amazingly unlikely is your birth. And pray that there's intelligent life somewhere up in space, 'cause there's bugger all